Hello, welcome back. Thank you, as always, for tuning in and for joining me here. And especially, above all else, for your dedication and commitment to your practice, your spirituality, your practice. Let's continue the theme that we began in the last recording about the practical day-to-day application of the ideas in A Course in Miracles. In other words, when I talk in one of these videos about your practice, what exactly do we mean? So if you did not see the last video, it's entitled Practicing This Course, Part 1, I invite you to go back and look at that because I looked at some basic ideas there, and with the hope that you might glean something from that that you might wish to put into use in your own practice, or perhaps you're doing something that I don't. That's absolutely fine. After all, as long as the basic core essence of our practice is the same, the outward details, the exterior, will look differently. And that is always going to be the case with this course because it is self-study. So what forgiveness lessons will come to you? Well, they're going to look differently than the ones that are going to come to me. And we'll talk more about that in the next few minutes. The essence of it, the core, the content in the language of the course is exactly the same. It is only the outward form that differs. So, as we talk about true forgiveness today, it is the foundational centerpiece of our practice of A Course in Miracles. It is, and appropriately so, it's described as our function here in the world. This is how we lift the veil. It's how we learn to perceive truly. And as always, with this course, we do so under the guidance of our inner teacher. Not sure what to do? Ask. That always applies. One of the greatest pitfalls that we encounter here as we study and practice this course is a pressing need that we've been conditioned to latch onto. But it is a deep-seated yearning to effect change on the level of form. We feel in our lives, due to our conditioning by our societies and advertising systems, commerce, schools, our parents, the government, whatever, wherever you live, we've all been conditioned to do our best, which of course is never good enough for us, to effect change on the level of form. To effect change on the level of form. Our houses, our social status and prestige, whatever that actually is, we belabor ourselves on these things. We worship them. Money, our job, our lifestyle, our social status, the fine quality of our threads, the car we drive, things like that. All of our economic systems are predicated on effecting change on the level of form in the world. So this course offers a stark contrast, and it really is a contrast, change is effected in the mind. In the mind, on the mind, if you want to call it the level of mind, yes, that. This course is about changing our mind, not our exterior circumstances. So, as a result of practicing true forgiveness according to the principles of A Course in Miracles, you may or may not see any outside change. You may or may not become wealthier. You may or may not become bigger, stronger, faster, sexier, hotter in the physical form. You may or may not acquire more stuff, more social status, more prestige, a greater number of followers on your social media accounts. You may or may not acquire such stuff. Whether you do or don't is not the point. So whether you heal yourself of a physical malady or a chronic condition is not the point. It's changing your mind that's the point. So, with this as a background, let's talk about true forgiveness. And I'd like to give you some examples from my own life and my own experience here. It's worth it to stop and have this conversation again and again because true forgiveness really is the practical centerpiece of A Course in Miracles. I mean, we're fond of saying in the world the heart and soul of it. Well, yeah, it's what we do. So, what is it? Well, there have been a number of videos here in this series dedicated to true forgiveness, and there are a number of wonderful commentaries out there online, in print, talking about what this course actually means by true forgiveness. What I want to emphasize is that it's done in the mind. This whole course is done in the mind. It may or may not show any exterior change. And I'll talk in a very large example from my own life about what I mean by that. There's a reason why we just spent a couple of minutes talking about how obsessive we are in the world about effecting change on the level of form. And why that's missing the point completely. When we forgive, it does not have to be done in person. It does not have to be done by a long, drawn-out telephone conversation, nor a text, nor an email, nor an old-fashioned handwritten letter of many pages in length, nor a 3 to 4 hour sit-down, tear-jerking conversation. It's done in the mind. Now, if you happen to have one of those outward forms, not a problem. Do so as directed by your inner teacher. The Holy Spirit, Jesus, whatever you call it. You may call it more than one thing. You may call it your team, your council, your board, your guides, whatever you wish. Our inner teacher, the Holy Spirit, is that part of our mind that will help us see past our illusions to truth. And that's exactly what we're doing with true forgiveness. This is not forgiveness as the world sees it. Forgiveness as the world commonly sees it is transactional. It keeps the separation firmly intact. I'll use my own mother as an example. She was an expert, and maybe some of you have parents that were or are certified experts at forgiveness as the world sees it, which maintains the sense of separation. So I did a number of things in my teenage years that can be best considered, well, reckless, unruly, illegal, things like that. Most of them she never found out about. But when she did, she would practice forgiveness as the world sees it. And it goes like this. Okay, I'll forgive you, but if you ever do that again, I'm going to cancel your birthday because that is miserable, sick, dirty, and wrong of you. So I forgive you this time, but don't ever do it again. I mean, the language would vary. That's the idea behind it. Now, what does this do, and why is it not true forgiveness? Well, number one, it maintains a sense of separation. What all too often happens is the person that supposedly is forgiving is stooping to a different level. See, there are no levels. There is only perfect oneness, so there's no hierarchy at all. We've invented all hierarchies. And this creates, and in my mom's case, created a hierarchy. She stooped to the level of the unruly teenager and deigned in her eminence to forgive him his transgressions against her, of course, always, right? Because we always feel wronged personally by somebody when we side with the ego. So she maintained this sense of superiority. This is what happens. The person supposedly stooping to the other one's level to forgive maintains a sense of separation. They think they're superior. The person that is supposedly forgiven under this circumstance often feels resentful, bitter and resentful because of this persistent hierarchy, of which, and she would remind me time to time, do you do that to people? Just asking, right? Because we've all, I think, experienced this in life. The person that stoops lords it over the person that was supposedly forgiven, and the person that's forgiven may feel bitter, they may feel resentful, spiteful, and hateful. That does nothing but keep the ego going, churning away, full speed, and fully intact, apparently. It's not true forgiveness. What is true forgiveness? True forgiveness is looking past what appeared to happen on the surface to the recognition that you and your brother are, in fact, one and have never been separate at all. We overlook what happens on the surface of life. This is a perfect image. It's a screen with pixelated dots on it. This is a pixelated image on your screen. And we can look at all of life as a screen upon which we're viewing a film, which is exactly what's happening. This is a 3D film to us. It appears real. It looks real. We're seeing it. We're reviewing it in our own mind. The world is coming from us. It is not coming at us. It is not happening to us. It's coming from us. Let's all forgive the illusion. The Course is absolutely right when it says there is no world. It's coming from us. In true forgiveness, we acknowledge this. We look past the illusion. We look past the seeming solid, concrete reality of someone's speech or someone's tweet or someone's Facebook post or their action that offended us to the essence, the truth of who they really are, one with you. Let's start with that. Your brother, is not similar to you or related to you. He is you. Why? We're not these bodies. Look past to the truth of who your brother really is. This is true forgiveness. Forgive him or her. Forgive the stuff that appeared to happen here on the screen of life. It is an image on a screen. Forgive it. Release it to your inner teacher. Each and every circumstance that comes up for our true forgiveness, which is, well, there are a lot of these in daily life. Each of these corresponds to unconscious guilt. What unconscious guilt? Unconscious guilt at, we think, throwing away heaven, separating from God, which, as we're lovingly and reassuringly taught here as we studied the course, never took place. The separation never occurred. So, in truly forgiving the Son of God, we acknowledge this. Because all of this is coming from you, who are you forgiving when you forgive your brother? Exactly. You, yourself. There's never been any separation of any kind. There is no prescribed formula for doing this the supposedly right or correct way. So there is no template to follow. That's something about this course that may or may not attract you. I don't know, because we like to be told a lot of the time what to do and in what circumstance. Well, you can get that guidance from your inner teacher who will tell you the words to say, and you do not have to say them out loud. Let's come back to my own mother, who passed away in 2016, by the way. And when she did, when she passed, she and I were not on speaking terms because, due to a pervasive pattern of abuse dating back, well, to the 1970s, when this thing appeared to appear here in the world. It's a lifelong pattern of abuse, emotional, almost always, emotional, psychological. You may have people in your lives that have the same impact on you. Many of us have endured the presence of someone close to us, whether it's a family member or a partner or even a work colleague, perhaps a boss, an associate, that never missed an opportunity to make you feel small, ever. So, during the last 2 years of my mother's life, so from about 2014 onward, to her transition, her passing here, we didn't speak. And you know what? We didn't need to speak. I had put some very healthy boundaries, some very healthy adult boundaries in place, which you may need to do, or perhaps you have in a situation. If you have, you know what I mean. You can still go to work forgiving despite not having any physical contact at all, not even a text message or an email. How? There's one mind. That's how. Your true forgiveness has a ripple effect throughout space and time. It benefits everyone. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. You think your act of forgiveness is small, it is mighty, just to say. So, because this situation had been in place for some time, we weren't speaking. I had been practicing the course and understood, despite my initial petulance, that I needed to forgive her truly. So I set about doing that. And my initial petulance is something that you may well think, oh God, do I have to forgive this person? Well, yes, ultimately, yes. Do you have to do it today? No. That's completely up to you because there are legitimate abuses in this world that you may have to get away from, right? How can you do any good for the all, for everybody, if you're maintaining a situation where you're unsafe? Get away, right? Sometimes we need to extricate ourselves from that situation in order to be of maximum benefit to everything that lives throughout space and time. If you're clobbered and harmed or worse, how can you show up lovingly? Anyway, perhaps that has spoken to some of you. I hope so, because there are a lot of situations out there. So, what I did was go to work in my own mind, forgiving her. So, the languaging that I've adopted, used, practiced over the years goes something like this. And I do so whenever a situation or a person makes me feel less than joyous. So, this is straight from A Course in Miracles. Any experience that is not wholly joyous is an opportunity for forgiveness. So anytime you feel small, anytime you feel inadequate or superior to somebody else, it's the same. Anytime you feel angry or enraged or annoyed or judgmental, you see someone's social media post and you want to just start going in your own mind about how dumb this person is and how could they think this way, et cetera, et cetera. Catch yourself the next time and forgive them. Forgive the social media platform, forgive the person, forgive what they said. Say, I forgive so and so. I forgive myself for dreaming them. Very important. It's your dream, remember? The world is coming from you. Forgive what appears in it. Forgive yourself for dreaming it. I often state in my mind that my brother and I have never been separated. My mom and I have never been separate. We are one. I forgive you. I release this to you, Holy Spirit. I join with you in peace. It's very important to release, forgive, and release. Release it to the Holy Spirit, your inner teacher. He's the one that clears the deep unconscious guilt. It's unconscious. We don't know about it. How much of it is there? He knows. We don't need to trouble ourselves with the corresponding guilt item. He'll do that. Ours is simply to recognize the forgiveness opportunity in the present moment, show up and do it. We're forgiving what our brother did not do. We've never been separate. This is true forgiveness. It's not transactional. It doesn't keep the separation real. Instead, it acknowledges that it never occurred. And in forgiving the other person, you are forgiving yourself. So, what happened in the incidents with my mother? I became increasingly peaceful as I forgave her, and I had multiple opportunities. Decades of abuse, that's a lot of frustration. And that's on a good day. On a bad day, there was abject anger, and there were times where I wanted to pick up the phone and send an evil text message. I did not, happily, but if I had, I would have forgiven her and myself for doing that. I did not do that because as I persisted, every time that I remembered to truly forgive, I began to notice something really important. I felt lighter, like a baggage or a burden was being lifted. The emotional weight and heaviness grew lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. The more I remembered to do it, that when you experience it, inspires you to continue to practice, to keep going. So that is what I have done. She was never aware of this. And had we reconnected and spoken and all of that before she passed, doubtless she would have noticed that I showed up very differently, having let go of tremendous baggage and weight and blackness. But we didn't, and that's okay. I want to come back to what we said a few minutes ago, and that is the goal should not be to effect change on the level of form. I did not want her to acknowledge my deep inner work. I did not seek a gold star or a pat on the back or loving adoration from anyone. You don't need that in order to keep going. The lifting of the veil is quite enough. It's more than enough, in fact. So, the goal, my purpose for doing this is to heal the mind. It was not to effect change in her behavior. That's forgiveness as the world sees it, trying to impact someone's behavior, making their current supposedly egregious behavior real to you. No, it's not real. Look beyond it. I never intended to make her a more loving person, to effect change in the way she treated me or my kids or my wife or anyone else. It's not about that. It's about effecting change in the mind. There is one mind. So your true forgiveness has a ripple effect that you cannot see and you cannot know, but trust that it is there. Why? There's only one of us. There's one of us. Your brother is you. Anyone that truly forgives benefits all of us. So thank you, as always, for your practice. See what I mean? Now, in wrapping this conversation up, of course, there's plenty more that can be said about it. So, naturally, as we go forward here in this illusion of time, there will be more of these videos because true forgiveness, being the practical centerpiece of A Course in Miracles, requires us to come back to it again and again and again, and we will. Again, you don't have to physically confront somebody. That may be very dangerous for you, unsafe, or even deadly. So don't do that, right? You don't need to physically interact with someone in order to forgive them. And the reason for that is that it is done all in the mind. So the invitation here is to keep going, to let go of your desire to effect change solely on the level of form. There are a lot of popular spirituality practices that have everything to do with the level of form and nothing at all to do with going beyond that. They're all about the level of form. And perhaps you've participated in some of those. Perhaps you have resonated with those. And if you still continue to, that's absolutely not a problem. This video series is about A Course in Miracles. So that's what we're talking about here. We're all invited to go beyond the surface. Always. Will you take your inner teacher up on that? That's up to you, of course. It's a choice that we make in the present moment. I will not make you do it. Your mother will not make you do it. No one will. You must choose to do it yourself. Remember, this is a self-study curriculum in which, I might add, questions are bound to arise. So when they do, please feel welcome to leave them here. This is a safe space for dialogue. Should you have questions and you'd like to type them out and leave them, please do that. If you don't feel capable of forgiving an abuser, not a problem. We're all invited to start with what we can forgive. If it's just forgiving a passing cloud for blotting out the sun for 5 minutes, do that. If it's forgiving the dog for peeing on the carpet, do that. If it's forgiving yourself for spilling coffee on your light-colored pants this morning, do that. Do what comes to you. It's your inner teacher talking to you, and he won't give you more than you can handle. We start where we are with what's right in front of us in our experience. If you have not subscribed, I invite you to do so here. This is the subscription arrow. And again, questions and comments are always welcome. Click or hover over that arrow, incidentally, and you'll be invited to join us. Several videos appear each week. And what I've wanted to do with the last two is just take some time out and look at the day-to-day practice of A Course in Miracles, because studying it, especially the text, can seem very esoteric. Incidentally, my aim with this is to make it as actionable and simple as possible, because the message itself is very simple. There has never been any separation of any kind. You are one with your brother and with God. One. All right. Thank you, as always, for joining me. Comments and questions, again, especially on this topic, are highly relevant because we all have different things appearing, supposedly appearing, in our experience to work with. So if you've got questions, I'm here to help. Thank you. I'll see you soon.